Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Many thanks for joining us on this session today. My name is Martin, and I work as Education Support Manager here at ACCA. Now, this session is designed to support your preparation for the Advanced Performance Management exam. And for this, I'm very pleased to be joined by expert tutor, Steve Willis. Before we kick off, I'd just like to cover a few housekeeping items for you. Number one, there are a couple of buttons at the bottom of your screens. There's a help icon on the left, which provides resources and information that would help you resolve any technical issues that you might experience. And we have some icons for the slides and the media player. Just ensure that you've selected this because you will need to see the slides and to hear the audio in the webinar. There is an attendee chat function, which will enable you to engage with fellow webinar attendees. And that icon is also somewhere at the lower end of your screen. We also have a resource list, that icon that looks like a file symbol. If you click on that, you'll be able to access the resources that are relevant to today's webinar, including the direct links. Remember, you can rearrange your screen to suit you and resize the windows if you need to. And just in case you can't hear what we are saying or you can't see any visuals at any point, please do refresh your browser. Registering for this webinar means you will be sent an email tomorrow with details of how you can listen to it again. So don't worry if you miss something or if you have any technical issues, as you'll be able to access the recording. Now I'll hand over to Steve in a moment, and I'll be back with you at the end for a question and answer session. So if you'd like to ask ACCA or Steve a question, then please click on the Q&A button, which is somewhere in the middle, at the lower end of your screens, and put in your questions bright and early. We have a team at the back end responding to those as we proceed, and we'll also respond to some of those questions live at the end, towards the end of the session. Please note that due to the volume of the questions, we may not be able to respond to all of them, either verbally or via web chat, but we hope that the questions that we share will be helpful to everyone. So thank you very much once again. And now over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Martin. Hello, brilliant APM students. Welcome to our webinar. Very happy to be with you. My name is Steve Willis. I've been helping people like you pass these difficult ACCA exams. It's been my job for about 20 years, and I'm very passionate about helping you guys pass these exams, gain membership so you can achieve your career aspirations. Guys, we have 25 days left till the exam. That is a lot of time. You still have control of you still have the power to pass. Okay, you can accomplish a lot in 25 days, so do not be panicked. As you know, APM, it is one of the most difficult of the ACCA exams that are out there. I teach the management accounting and the performance management exams, and boy, APM causes a lot of people trouble. And I meet a lot of people who have to resit. So at the end of the webinar, I want to talk a little bit about resitting. Now, we're here today. I want to help you guys get a pass. We're going to put APM in focus. I want to go through the key ideas from the recent examiner's report. What have people done badly in the past? Raise your awareness of this so you do not repeat those mistakes. Okay? I want to share with you some things that you can do quickly, quick wins to gain marks, to get closer to a pass. And I want to take your questions as well. Now, I've got a poll question for you. Let us know if you are resitting. Guys, let us know if you are resitting. You can click right on the screen. Okay, you got the button there? You guys are chatting. You guys are answering the poll question right now. Alrighty, most of you have answered the poll. Let's see, we got 50-50 resitters. Guys, I had to resit before. You are not alone. I got stuck on one of the papers. I got stuck on financial reporting. I think I failed it 3 times, I think it was. But I finally got a pass. At the end of our webinar, I'll share with you what I did. And we'll talk about what you guys can do. First thing though, put that fail in the past. It's over, it's done. Forget about it. Just focus on what you can do in the next 25 days. Now, let's jump right in. Feedback from the recent examiner's report. Now, here is a spoiler, guys. The comments are recurring. I've read these problems before. I feel like I'm reading an examiner's report from 3 years ago every time I read a new one. Guys, let me take you through now the most common errors that students are making, and I want to tell you how to fix them. So at this point, make sure that you have some notebook paper handy so that you can take notes. All right, the examining team, they are regularly reminding students to justify your points. You've probably heard that before. Justify the point you are making. And a common situation in the APM exams is to evaluate performance metrics that are given to you in a performance report. So you need to learn how to justify why something is or is not appropriate. And guys, the problem is this. It's very easy to make an unjustified assertion. Guys, I live here in Central Europe. I live in the small, beautiful city of Prague, Czech Republic. When I meet my friends, I tell them, yeah, Prague is a great place to visit. People nod their heads. They might have heard of that. Yeah, I'd love to come sometime. But team, that would not earn a mark in APM, okay? If I was evaluating tourism destinations in Central Europe, what is the problem? It is an unsupported assertion. I did not say why it's a nice place to visit. So every time in the exam you are making a point, you need to add the linking word because. Prague is a good place to visit because there is beautiful architecture, lots of activities, and it's not too expensive. Return on capital employed is not an effective metric for measuring shareholder value. No mark. Because it is linked to accounting profit, not cash flows, and it does not consider the cost of capital of the company. You see, I added those 2 things and I got the mark. Everybody, is that crystal clear? Give me a thumbs up emoji if that is crystal clear. You must say because, and you must state the obvious. When I'm working with resitters, and I work with a lot of resitters, many of whom are already professionals working in international companies, and I look at their work, and we are now used to writing with such brevity. We want to write quickly. We want to win that email. So we don't state the obvious, but in APM, link it to the story, okay? Must do that. Provide evidence for your argument. That's the number one problem, guys, in my opinion, right there. Now, next problem. APM is using high-level verbs in the requirements. These are verbs that require you to express some kind of judgment. Okay, so the examining team said that evaluation is not the same thing as listing something, identifying something, or explaining something. So the next problem linked to that is the misunderstanding of the key verbs that we meet in APM. Guys, your exam will be full of evaluation, assessment, and giving advice and recommendations. This is not the same thing as explaining, discussing, and describing. These are the verbs that you met in the lower papers. So, how do we fix this problem when we see evaluate the switch to activity-based costing? Well, you want to avoid describing the situation again. Very common to describe what we're seeing in the scenario. You're not going to get marks just for re-describing. Maybe you'll get 1 or 2 marks for explaining what activity-based costing is, but you will definitely not cross the pass mark. You got to express judgment in your answer. And the way to fix this, when they're asking you to assess the impact, okay, on the organization of moving to the balanced scorecard. Guys, you must structure your answer. If we're assessing impact, do we see items that are positive? Do we see positive impact or negative? Is it a big impact? Is it a small impact? And the impact needs to be on something. So it will have a negative impact on profits because it will increase our costs, or maybe it will increase risks. Okay, so you've got to develop your ideas with that language. Is it a positive or negative impact, big or small? Guys, evaluating the implementation of radio frequency ID tags on the logistics function of the company. You're not going to describe what they are. You're not going to describe how it works. You're going to immediately jump in with pros and cons. How will it help? What are the issues? And when you're doing this, please arrive at an overall comment that is supported by what you've said above. Okay? Advise the directors on switching to, on implementing Six Sigma for the process improvement job. Okay, once again, pros and cons and conclusion. And team, when you do this, you will be scoring the A and E, the analysis and evaluation marks. When you make your point and it is linked to the scenario and you are supporting your analysis with evidence or with a calculation, you'll get the credit. So guys, does that make sense? In APM, you're going to be expressing judgment regularly in your answer. Avoid re-describing the situation. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense, people. Guys, please give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Great. So we're linking the answer to the situation in the company. Alrighty, poor performance. Here's another comment in the recent examiner's report. Poor performance was due to not reading and answering the requirement. This might be Yeah, this is tied for number 2 with the previous problem, not understanding the verbs. First problem, not justifying your points. Second problem, not understanding the verb. Third problem here, tied with the other one, not reading and answering the requirement. Guys, you might have heard this already. If you haven't, I'm telling you now. There is an idiosyncrasy of APM. If you're coming straight from SBL, you have never met this before. The instructions on how to answer the question are not in the requirements tab. They come directly from the CEO, and they are hidden or they are included in the exhibits. These are the embedded tasks or the embedded requirement. So look at this one. The CEO wants an assessment of these indicators, including their calculation, if that's possible. So I'm going to make a heading. Then under each heading, I'll put each indicator that's listed in the story. Does it help measure? Is it a helpful metric or is it unhelpful? Right away. Does it help measure the achievement of the company's objectives? Does it help measure a problem that we discovered? Oh, quality is dropping. Is it measuring quality? Are we measuring quality? Okay. Then you'll open a spreadsheet. You'll do the math in the spreadsheet. You bring it over. Everyone, give me a thumbs up if that is crystal clear. One section, assessment of the indicators. Got to show judgment. And look at this. Many students would then miss the second part, whether and how they link to the mission and subsidiary objectives. So what I would do, I would copy all of those metrics in, assessment, and then I would put link to mission as a subheading. I'd copy it under each, and I'd say, yes, it's well linked, no, it's badly linked. I would answer the question that is asked. Guys, is that crystal clear? Find, read, execute what the CEO is asking from you. If you do that, you're going to also scoop up more professional marks. If they want an assessment of something, that means they want you to also describe the contrapoints. If you describe the contrapoints, you might be earning the skepticism marks. You'll be earning the A and E marks. If you are linking well to the scenario, if you are giving valuable advice, that's going to start linking to the business acumen marks. So we got 3 things so far that you've got to do. 1, justify your answers. 2, express judgment with that evaluate, advise, recommend. 3, you got to find the embedded requirements, guys. Now, here is another problem. This one doesn't come up as often as the previous 3 problems. The examiner's report mentioned this. Many candidates failed to calculate the costs that they were asked to. Most candidates did not know what standard deviation meant. Guys, at this point, standard deviation, right? It's a basic for us, a quantitative tool for budgeting, for analysis. We learned about it in MA. I teach standard deviation now at the bottom level of the qualification, at the MA, at the introductory level. So that's a bit sad if the candidates are not even aware of the meaning, that it shows how spread out the data is, the dispersion of the data. Guys, candidates' lack of knowledge on PM was the most concerning aspect of this question. Guys, as you know, PM is assumed knowledge in APM. Many of the topics are directly carried forward. Activity-based costing, life cycle costing, budgeting, variance analysis, marginal costing, absorption costing. Okay, so it's critical that you are up to speed with PM. In this last exam, there was a lot of PM in it, guys. You had environmental management accounting, you had life cycle costing, and you also had the standard deviation. So guys, it's going to be quite tricky to get a pass if you do not have a firm grasp of these topics. Guys, I really recommend you review the main PM costing, marginal costing, absorption costing, activity-based costing, life cycle costing, target costing. All of those are, most of those are directly right in the syllabus, and the others are assumed knowledge. You've got to know how to calculate an overhead absorption rate. Budgeting, the budgeting approaches are in the syllabus. Variance analysis, one of the heaviest topics in PM. What I recommend you do, review interpretation of the variances. What do they tell us? Okay, and when variances come up, it's planning and operational variances. Those ones are directly listed in the syllabus. So make sure you review the most importantly, the interpretations of all the variances. Planning and operational calculations, a must. Now, if you do not know about this, there is still time. You have 25 days. You can go to the, maybe one of my colleagues can put this into the chat window, the test your knowledge link, okay? There's a test your knowledge Get Ready module. If you go to the APM resources, you can find this and you can actually test your knowledge here. Okay? Make sure you review marginal costing. Working with contribution per unit. Okay? Understanding the impact of fixed costs and the fact that fixed costs, when we include them in a short-term decision, it's going to distort. It's going to distort our judgment. Give me a thumbs up, team, if that's resonating. You need to review the PM topics if they're fuzzy, especially if you took exemptions for PM. Guys, many answers were too brief. Another comment. Avoid brevity. They're not marking you on the number of words, okay? It's impossible to reproduce a document written to the quantity and with the style that you find in the model solutions, okay? But we can still get a comfortable pass with half the number of words. So let's begin by avoiding generic answers. Look at this. We have a requirement. Evaluate the performance report. One answer says this: a limitation of the report is that it doesn't have charts and graphs. Guys, we all know that a modern report will have visualizations. It's going to help us understand trends. It saves us time. We can gain more insight with visualization. We all know that. So this is an example also of not an unsupported assertion. That would be a disadvantage or a weakness of the report. So this person is on track to get a pass, but that's all they said. And they did not get credit. What do we do to fix it? A limitation of the report is that it doesn't have charts and graphs. Visualizations would help busy directors. In the story, they said the report is for the directors. It would help busy directors see trends and gain more insight at their annual meeting. That's also in the story. They use the report at their annual meeting. Now look at this. For example, the increase in sales. So in the paper report, you can see that sales are increasing. That would be more apparent with the graph. That right there is earning credit, guys. I have now avoided, I've now justified my answer. Everybody give me a plus if you see that that is now justified. Do you guys see that that is justified? Unjustified, justified, right? Adding a little bit more. So you must link to that scenario. Make your point, just say a little bit more. One thing that helps my students, when you go into that exam, just imagine that it is a business simulation. Imagine you're going for a job interview at a international management consulting firm, and you have been shortlisted, and they're going to decide on who they hire based on the APM exam. So you want to provide helpful information to the CEO. Will the CEO hire you based on your work? Are you helping? So keep that in mind. That's a great way to get into the right mindset for getting a pass. So answers are too brief. When they are one, just generic. So go for 2 or 3 sentences to build up a nice idea, not just one short, simple statement. And you've got to develop enough ideas. So imagine you see a 12-mark requirement. I want you to cut the 12 in half. Now you are at 6. So if you gave the marking team 6 ideas, you would get a pass. But that's too risky because maybe the marking team doesn't like all of our ideas. So add a couple, add a little buffer. So for a 12-mark requirement, I would shoot for 8, maybe 9 ideas. One more thing. Plan your answer before you start writing, okay? Pros, cons. As you are reading the exhibits, organize your thoughts. List out 3 or 4 pros. List out 3 or 4 cons. Make sure you made a place for your overall comment. After you've organized the skeleton of your document, then you can go in and you can use a parallel writing style. You don't have to, it's not creative writing. You can just say, this metric is helpful because, bum, 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 bum. It's linked to the mission here, bum, 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 bum. Just use the same approach. You don't have to, it's not creative writing. You don't have to craft it into I wish I could draw right now on the whiteboard and show you. Guys, small digression. For business writing, we like a pyramid. This is my main idea. These things support that pyramid. There's no drama, there's no suspense. Creative writing, I went into the forest. It was dark, it was spooky, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the paragraph, you surprise. No, just keep it simple. Business writing, pyramids. Main idea, supporting chunks. Keep it moving. Now, look at this. This is a beast of a requirement. So this is an example of a embedded task that needs planning. Have a read of there. Can you find the embedded task? Can you find the embedded task? You guys find it? The CEO. Oh, I had some highlighting there. It's not working. Guys, the verb, the CEO has asked us to assess changes. So you're going to read the story. You're going to find all of the things that need to change. You're going to list those out. Is it a big change? Is it a small change? What's the impact of the change? What's the impact on stakeholders? Do they have the technology to make the change? Is the company culture set up to make the change? Do they have the IT systems? And look at this, areas of purchasing and production. So I would break that into two headings, purchasing, production, segment. 13, divide that in half, that's 7. So I'm going to go for 9 ideas, plus an overall comment. So if I could find 4 areas that we have to change under both, and then assessment, big or small, what's the impact on the company? Are they ready for it? Okay, so that is what you will need to do. Plan this out. Headings and subheadings. Assessment, show judgment. Give the marketing team enough information. Use examples. Develop your ideas. So plan your answer as I just described. You brainstorm your ideas, everything that we need to change. Guys, and that list then becomes your heading, the headings in your report or your document. Okay? Develop your points under each heading. And now you're passing, guys. Now you're developing sufficient ideas to get a pass. So if we summarize, let's avoid these common mistakes. Evaluate, assess. Express judgment. Justify your answers. Say because. Link your answer to the scenario. Find and follow the embedded task, guys. Plan your answer before you write. So guys, these are the common mistakes, a summary of what we just spoke about. I see a comment in the attendee chat about stakeholders. So if we're changing the purchasing, well, that's going to impact not only the suppliers, but our delivery. It's going to impact other people in our supply chain. That's my idea there, Samuel. The impact of changing. Okay, quick wins, guys. Write this down. You want to get some easy marks. Make the report look like a report in question 1. Headers, subheaders, headings and subheadings. Report header, introduction. Answer the requirements. You'll get communication mark for that, and it will set you up to answer the question precisely as asked by the CEO. Use a simple, direct business style. Imagine you are writing an email to a friendly colleague at work. Avoid a dense academic style. Make the report look like a report. Get the professional marks. Now, we have other resources on professional marks that you can find in the APM resources, okay? But don't stress about the professional marks. If you answer the question precisely as asked, if you treat this experience as a business role play, if your answer is helping the company, okay? If you're imagining that it's a job assessment, will they hire you? You're going to be in the right mindset. And when you do all of these things, you're going to be ticking the boxes for the professional skills, okay? So do not overly stress about the professional marks. Answer the questions as they are asked. Guys, get in the habit of developing your ideas a little bit further. Use linking words. We can say because, we can say also, we can say however. Look at the issue from another point of view. Just take your ideas a little bit further. Okay, it's going to force you to write more. Markers will be happy when they see your ideas are developed. When you give a good example, when you look at a point from another point of view, you can get a technical mark, and it's also evidence of the professional skill, so it can give you the professional mark. Guys, skip the big wordy definitions, okay? Skip the long academic definitions. However, there is often a mark available, 1, maybe 2 marks for definitions of terms. So if they ask you in the requirement to use a specific technical model, whether it's the balanced scorecard, whether it's value for money, whether it's Six Sigma, whether it's target costing, just in 3 sentences, say what it is, okay? That can help you get a mark. Structure your answer on the embedded tasks, guys. You find the verbs. The verbs are your main headings. Number of marks tells you how many ideas to generate. 2 or 3 sentences linked to the story. In some of those, you chuck in however. Also, on the other hand, some of those are developed a bit further, and you have a great looking answer that's scoring credit. Okay, team? So quick wins right there. Do those things. You're going to be getting easy marks. Let's talk about next steps. Make a study plan. In the resources tab, you can get this PDF that I made for you, okay? And I want you to be doing something every day. What are you going to do every day? Do a topic a day linked to a question. So you're doing something every day. I recommend you change your study time, especially if you are resitting, okay? Mornings are great times to do technical work, okay? Your mind is fresh, you can gain new knowledge. You can absorb new knowledge. So you gotta make a study plan. You've gotta be using a really up-to-date revision question book because of the new professional marks. If you're using someone else's older book, it might not be very well updated. And the best thing to do would just be go into the Study Hub, which I'm about to tell you about. Okay, if you can do a question every day, put it into your study plan. Now, if you haven't done them, do the practice exams and do the mock exam, and then view the mock exam debrief videos that we just put a lot of effort into producing. We take you through the exam technique. Everything that I've just talked about is explained in those videos. So highly recommend you check out the mock exam debrief videos after you attempt it. And I recommend you look at the last examiner's report. Don't just listen to me, read it yourself, and you can see more examples. Guys, ACCA Study Hub. If you haven't heard about this, this is a super cool new resource. I'm going in there now. I think the questions are well written. The notes are very helpful. So you can study now with these. 100% of your studying can be done from the Study Hub. There's free online content. You've got quizzes, and there's a whole revision book built into it. So I want you guys to check this out. You log into My ACCA, you go to My Qualifications, and you can find it. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. I'm going to show you a very cool movie that explains it in more detail.
Let's take a closer look inside Study Hub, your ultimate study resource. It's a digital hub. Study Hub gives you online access to study materials from ACCA. It works like an ebook with added interactivity. It's a knowledge hub. Study chapters help to increase your understanding. A visual overview shows all the topics in each chapter, so it's easy to see how they link up. It's a revision hub. End of chapter quizzes put your knowledge to the test. The multiple choice questions are automatically marked so you can review your performance. Flashcards test your knowledge of key definitions. Check your answer against the definition on the reverse of the card. Practice questions help you prepare for your exams. You can instantly compare your answers to the suggested solutions. It's an anywhere hub. Whenever and wherever you want to work, Study Hub is there on web and mobile. It's a success hub. 79% of students said Study Hub made them more confident. 90% said they would use Study Hub again. Use Study Hub to help boost your progression. Just go to your My ACCA account and click on the Study Hub link.
So guys, make sure you check out that Study Hub. Now, resitters. What I did when I got stuck resitting, first thing I did was I changed my study time. Okay, I blocked out early mornings. I was busy. I was already busy as a, I was already working as a manager. I was quite busy. I would iron my work shirt. I would lay out my work clothes at 5 in the morning, 2 or 3 times a week. I would wake up, I would have an exam question on the kitchen table, and I would do 2 hours of exam work. Then at 7 o'clock, put on my suit and go to work. That was very helpful. I learned about exam technique. I had been looking at the theory too much, so I really dug into the examiner's reports, and I focused on exam technique rather than the technical knowledge. And I did lots of simulation. I practiced exams, and I was always doing that with a stopwatch, okay? Making sure that I'm aware of time management. So, resitters, I want you to reflect after this webinar. You really got to decide, what are you going to change this time? Something needs to change in your approach, okay? And I bet you it's one of those common mistakes that we talked about. Justify your answer, develop enough ideas, avoid generic answers, okay? So I think that those things, if you work on those, that's going to really help you. Guys, stay calm. If you are resitting, it's in the past. Nothing you can do about it now. You learned from it. Just focus on the next 25 days. Let's take your questions now. Let me open up the Q&A window and see what questions you have. Okay, first question. Can we use tables in our answer? For example, advantages and disadvantages, and give an evaluation at the end. I think you mean conclusion at the end. Guys, there would be no problem using tables. I'm going to say but in a second, okay? I'm going to say but. There's no problem using tables your ideas expressed, your written ideas will be marked whether or not they are in a table. I think, though, that when we use a table, it tempts us, it's tempting to not write enough, right? When we're in a table, we don't want to, we want to keep our writing really compact. So for that reason, I would say you don't really need tables. I would just use a structure of pros, cons, list them out, because we're in a word processor, so it's dynamic, it expands and grows. You could use a table, but then I think psychologically you're limiting your writing. So I would recommend not using a table for something like laying out advantages and disadvantages. Guys, I'm reading the questions. All righty, here's a resitter who is worried about time management, and this resitter is stuck at 36, so pretty far off. Guys, time management is a big problem in APM, or it's a challenge. So you've got to be ruthless with your time. You've got to follow an overall exam approach, time management system. So I recommend that you spend 1 hour, 45 minutes in section A, and then 45 minutes in each question in section B. Okay? Now, it takes some time to read all of those exhibits. So by the time you've read the exhibits and planned your answers, you're really down to roughly 1.5 minutes per mark. Okay? Now, to maximize your marks in this time, 1, do the easy requirements first. Give me a thumbs up if you recognize that you can do the easiest requirements first. You don't have to go in order, right? Do the easiest thing first. They ask you to evaluate the performance report, assess the balanced scorecard, evaluate the introduction of radio frequency ID tags. These come up and we know how to answer them. So do the easiest things first. Now, you don't have to write like the model answer. Make your point quickly, write in the active voice. If you're running out of time, you're probably writing too much and you're not scoring marks for everything you've written. Something is good, something is bad. This is a disadvantage because bump, 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 bump. Also, it will affect bump, 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 bump. That is a mark. Go to the next one. Do not overwrite. When you run out of time on a requirement, even if you don't feel like you did it well enough, keep it moving, keep it moving. When you run out of time in a question, you want to have been working on the most difficult requirement. So when time is up, just go get easier marks in the next question in section B. Now, also, when you go to section B, do the easiest question first. Okay? And when you are practicing at home, you do not need to write an entire question to simulate the exam experience. When athletes train for a marathon, you don't train for a marathon by running other marathons. What I recommend you do, you take a section B question, okay? Really structure your answer, structure your ideas, then put your timer on 5 minutes and see if you can write 3 of those ideas in 5 minutes, okay? See if you can get 3 little paragraphs done, okay? Then check the model solution and just see if your ideas are on track, okay? Then have a look at your answer. Is it linked to the scenario? Did you say because? Are you avoiding unsupported assertions? Now, please go check out the debrief videos. There, I've shown you very efficient exam writing. And you can see that a passing answer does not need the volume of words, okay, that you see in the model answer. All right, here's a question, the difference between SBL and APM. SBL, we could say more general business analysis, strategy, a broader syllabus. There's no embedded requirements in SBL. They tell you right there what to do, okay? APM is really about performance management, helping the company reach its objectives. How can we do that? Well, we need to measure performance if we're going to manage performance. So a big part of APM is being able to measure performance. In order to measure performance, we need data, we need which we turn into KPIs, and then we need a toolbox of techniques. Once we are measuring performance, we can now manage performance. If we have a quality problem, we can use Six Sigma. Okay? If we are losing market share and quality is dropping, well, maybe we should try a balanced scorecard, so we're measuring a broader perspective. You get the idea. So APM has a narrower syllabus focused on performance management, a set of specific tools. You have embedded requirements. APM is more difficult if pass rates are a judge of exam difficulty. In SBL, every question is a business document, isn't it? It's every question. It's either briefing notes or slides. In APM, you only get the report in question 1. Okay, so those are some of the differences between SBL and APM. APM, a bit more difficult. Here's a question about exam technique, and if I understand this question correctly, for question 1, the report, is it necessary to write, for example, question 1? Guys, for question 1, you got to make it look like a report. Report title, report on performance management issues. 2, the CEO, prepared by, date, okay, introduction. You don't have to go crazy with that. Just look in the model solutions and you see exactly what to do there. There's nothing mysterious about that. But then you really do, each requirement is a heading, right? Each requirement, so review of the KPIs would be the big heading, and then under that, the different verbs that you found in the embedded task. So your question 1 should really look like a report with sections, subheadings, and the requirements are your sections, the subheadings are the verbs that you find in the embedded tasks. You don't have to do it in order, of course, but keep it laid out in order. When we did the exams in paper, that was more of an issue, but now it's a word processor, so you can start writing anywhere you want. Here's a question on exam approach. If there are a couple of requirements, can we club them under one heading and shown in different paragraphs? Well, I don't like that idea. Don't like that idea, guys. One paragraph, to me, a paragraph in APM is going to be 2 or 3 sentences, right? 2 or 3 sentences. And if you expand your exam word processor window, right, it might even be, you know, just 1.5 lines. Every requirement, and the requirement is that main ask that we see in the requirements section under the exhibits. Copy in the requirement, 12 marks. Then you find the embedded requirement, and the CEO might be asking you to do 2 or 3 things. Then for each of those, put each of those asks under there. So if there are several requests for work under a requirement, every request for work is separated. And if there are subtasks, separate those. Okay, very, very important. Here's a question on exam approach. Do you think doing a section B question first is a good idea? I recommend section A first because it's the heaviest. You need the most time. You've got to do the report. You've also got the communication marks there. You've got to read more. And if you start on B, there's a risk of running out of time there on question 1. Okay, but if you look at the questions, the requirements, and if you feel like you're really unlucky in question 1 with the topic, but you know one of the questions one of the topics really well in section B, if you had to make that tactical decision, I would respect that as long as you followed very good time management and only spent 45 minutes on that, So, yeah, in a pinch, you can do that. Here's a question. How many past exam papers should I do? How soon should I attempt the ACCA pre-September mock? Well, I recommend that you work from approved materials. Okay, you got to get your hands on approved materials, recent. Easiest way to do that is to use the Study Hub. If you are looking at books that are a couple of years old, well, they might not have the professional marks, in which case that book will be useless, or it will be of limited use, very limited use. If your book is like 1 year old, that's when the professional marks just came out. So the material publishers were just learning how to deal with it. If you're working with a latest book, now the subject matter experts know about the professional marks. We've had 3 exam reports to learn about what the students are doing wrong. You're going to be much better prepared. But you don't want to do exams. You want to practice questions. Guys, the best thing that you could do, if you could do 1 question a day minimum, and then if you could do 3 questions on every weekend day, you're going to be in good shape. I would go around the syllabus, make sure you're trying a question from every syllabus area. Okay, that's something very important. Budgeting, make sure you try a couple of budgeting questions. EVA, you got to do an EVA question. Activity-based costing, modern management, right? So you can do activity-based costing or target costing. That comes up. Make sure you try that. You got to do a quality question for sure. So I would go topic by topic. Make sure that you're covering all the topics. The number of exams, I mean, that's depends on your time. At a minimum, you want to go through all of the topics. I recommend you do the pre-September mock in 2 weeks before. Would be great. Then you'll have more time to learn. Watch the debrief video, and you can learn from that. So there you go. Here's a question for someone who has a chronic fail. Someone has failed 4 times. and they're in the low 30s. Guys, you need professional help if you're there. I definitely recommend you do a mock exam, a paid mock exam. When I did my exams 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was, you had fewer resources out there, right? You could take one course. It was really expensive. If you wanted a mock exam, you had to participate on this course. Every semester, there are new options emerging. Now the publishers are providing just a mock exam service. So if you have if you're a chronic fail and you're in the 30s, you need professional help. You need someone to look at your work and give you specific advice as to what you're doing wrong. So you got to do that. Don't spend more money on exam fees. For the cost of the exam fees, you can get a mock exam marked. Now, here's a question. This will be the last question, guys. Last question. So we talked about a re-sitter who's chronic in the 30s, professional help. If you are missing only 2 or 3 marks, I would say to you, you are sitting in that exam room for 3 hours and 15 minutes. You couldn't come up with just 2 more ideas. So if you are only missing 2 or 3 marks, 100% it's exam technique. Make sure you are justifying every point that you make. You might be overwriting. You're developing your ideas too far. You're describing the scenarios. You're describing things. You're not assessing. So I recommend, if you are only missing 2 or 3 marks, go back to those first slides in our presentation. And I would like you to go into your past work. Get out a question that you tried last year. And now look at it. Find your assertions. Is it supported? Did you make enough ideas? Do you have a structure? Are you using linking words? Because, however, also. So that's what I recommend for the person who's resitting with only missing a couple of marks. 100% it's exam technique. And I shared with you the 5 things that you can do to fix your exam technique. Guys, you got 25 days. I know that you can do it. If you are resitting, put it in the past, please. Print out that study plan, put the topics into there, find a question for every topic. Weekends, you can do more. In the next couple of weekends, make sure you do a full exam simulation several times. Make sure you do the mock exam, practice exams. And I'll keep my fingers crossed for you. Best of luck, everyone.
Thank you, Steve. I think that was a very fantastic session. And that's all the time that we had for the session today. Please remember you can access the resources on the resources tab. You'll get links to the relevant resources. You'll get some PDF documents that will be very useful. So thank you so much for attending the session. We do hope you found it useful. And like Steve said, best of luck as you prepare and all the best in your exams. Thanks and goodbye.